Hello, my name is Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest this week is Karen Goodwin, an intuitive healer, hypnotherapist, and transformational specialist. Karen has created a program called the Awesome New You Transformation Program, which enables women to step out of their old version and step into their awesomeness. Karen has always been aware of her spiritual gifts and has only recently started to allow them to be seen and direct the work that she does. During our conversation, she shares the different subjects and modalities she's been guided to learn over the years that have added to her innate gifts that she now shares with the world. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
I feel it quite a few different times. The first time is when I wake up in the morning. My ritual after I wake up is to do my light building. That sets me up for the day if I'm focused on my intention for the day. But the other time that I actually feel it probably the most is when I'm playing my music and when I'm singing and when I'm dancing and just acting about, because nobody can see me here. I can do what I want. But I get so much out of music, and I'm always vigilant on the type of music that I choose, because it's always got to have a good beat. It's got to have good words to it. I've got to be able to sing along. And although I know I haven't got a brilliant voice, so that's why I don't care if I'm in house or I'm in my car. I can just sing as loud as I want, but it just makes me feel good. And the other one as well is when I'm talking to people about ascension, about light building, about all of the things that are going off and about spirit and angels and, all of this stuff. It's like my playground, it's like, oh yeah, I have got so much to say, so much to share. And I get excited by other people's experiences. It's like, wow, yeah, so they're feeling what I'm feeling. And, it's just brilliant.
We're going to have fun then, because those are all my juicy fun topics as well. And music, that's kind of my background. So absolutely, I totally understand music. So before we get deeper into it then, Karen, can you just share a little bit about your journey and what got you doing the work that you're doing today?
When I was younger, I was very, very shy. Although knowing as a hypnotherapist, I understand what that means now. But then obviously as a child, I didn't. I'm the middle one of three. So I was kind of more of the quiet one, the one that sort of observed, but I didn't say a lot. I was very, very uncomfortable when I was younger about mixing with other people. So I didn't actually say a lot. And so as I got older, I realised that I relied on my mum a lot because I was shy. And then when I married, I kind of transposed it, so to speak, onto my ex-husband because he was older than me. And I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I always thought that I wasn't clever enough, and it wasn't anything that my parents had done, because they were really, really good at encouraging us. And it was just my perception that I had of me, because I believed that I was shy. So I used to struggle a lot with things like IBS and very bad stomach pains whenever I had to go anywhere. And, it's like the head telling you all these stories like this is going to happen, and oh gosh, what if I need toilet, that kind of thing. So I talked myself out of things. And I remember when I was quite young, my cousin had a daughter a similar age to me and my sister, and she wanted us to go and stay over, so that we could play together. And I'll go. The moment I had to do it was like, I can't go. I don't want to go. Please don't make me go. And I used to do that quite a lot. I did it with parties, my friends at school. And my mum told me a story once that some friends once came to... they wanted to come and play, after school. I can't remember myself, so I must have been quite young. And she said, and when they knocked on the door, you said, can you just tell them I've got a headache? So I wouldn't have to play with them. I was like, oh gosh. Aww. But then I when I was 16, I was lucky enough to get a job as soon as I left school. And I went to work for John Lewis as a hairdresser. And that was kind of like the stepping stone to my evolution, because having to deal with, it was a big hairdressing salon and there was 26 of us working there. And we just ended up like a big family, and then obviously seeing all these different people coming in from all walks of life and having to talk to them, my confidence started to come. I went through a period with my ex-husband of, I wanted a family and I had problems trying to conceive. And I was just told to go away and keep trying, and, but it didn't happen. So we made the choice to adopt. My first daughter, when she came along, it was like this adult suddenly appeared, that now I'm responsible for someone else. So I have to overcome this shyness because I've got to do things for this child. And it kind of developed like that. And then throughout my hairdressing career, I've been a hairdresser and I still am. I still do a little bit, but I've been doing that for 44 years. It's 44 years of learning. That's what I say, because I'm still evolving. But throughout that period, I've got this brain that wants to keep learning. I'd go to college for one thing and I'd qualify in that, and then I'd go for something else. And then there were other things like, diplomas I've done online, did 3 courses on how to make cosmetics and soaps. And it was this constant evolution going off. I've been a wedding planner. I've been a balloon decorator. I've been a small animal boarder, because I absolutely adore animals. They're my life. I can't live without them. But it's kind of like completely different things, but it was all part of me learning things and growing from them. And, when I did the pet boarding, I didn't just set up a pet boarding business. I always go into everything. I decided to do a course on animal psychology. And because I'd already studied in Reiki, I did Reiki level 1 and 2, but I do angelic healing and energy healing. But then I decided to do a course on animal Reiki and all of these things, because I thought they would help with whatever it was that, I was doing at the time. The spiritual side of all of this was kind of something that was always there. I didn't see it as different to anybody else. It was like it was always there. My mum's a medium. She works in this field, but not publicly. I have to say she's amazing at it, but she's never gone down that road. But it's always there. My dad, unfortunately, is an atheist, or he says he is, but I don't believe him. He didn't want to be involved in it, and he didn't want to understand my mum. So I think it was a blessing when I was starting to develop, because we have such a relationship, that we talk about all sorts of things. And, when I feel like I'm a bit disconnected, she rang me up a few days ago and she said, I've got to tell you this straight away, because it's just come through. And the message was, you must pass this on straight away, just to say that your team has got you back. Who's my team? you know who your team is, Karen. I went, okay, I'm thinking, have I got more people coming in? But it's lovely that I've got that. If anything's coming through me or I've got questions. And this is the thing as well with me, that I do question everything. I'm always wanting to, yes, but why this? Why this? But I answer my own questions.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's not me as a human being that's answering my own questions, but it's that higher part of me that's answering these questions, you know, but it's kind of very philosophical, you know.
Mm.
So I studied philosophy because I were interested, you know, in lots of different things, NLP, coaching. I feel like, and I do think this is not just me, but for everybody, that we are constant works in process. You know, so you're always growing a bit more, and you kind of go through this process of, I call it this box, you know, so you've got these ideas and these expressions and these integrations and these transitions, and everything in life goes through that process. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same with this developing, you know, of yourself. And it's about learning more about who you are, not just from a spiritual aspect, but as a human being as well, and being able to accept those little idiosyncrasies that you've got, and rather than judge yourself over them, because that's another ego thing as well that we do. And ego's not a bad thing, it's just part of who you are. But we can easily fall into that when we get on a sort of a slide of that lower vibration coming in, that you go, you know, well, who wants to listen to me? And, you know, what do I know? And I must be rubbish. But that's just your ego talking. I just have to give it a slap now and again. Do you know what? I'm not listening anymore. But yeah, it was, you know, going back to when I was younger, there was kind of experiences that happened in my life. Well, for instance, the day I was born, I actually wasn't breathing. And I have a story about that I used to tell myself, you know, well, maybe I knew what were coming, so I decided I didn't want to go. But my mum told me, you know, when I was actually born, I was born on the day that President Kennedy was shot and killed.
Oh, wow.
And I was born at 7:00 in the morning. And I was born at home. And in those days, a lot were born at home, you know, so the doctor came to you. And I was born with the cord, you know, around my neck, so I wasn't breathing. And the doctor tried all sorts to get me to breathe, and I just wasn't responding. And my mum said it was really weird, because he'd said to her, this is really, you know, something they shouldn't do. They would have got struck off for it if they'd have done it in this day and age. And, you know, thankfully, probably that doctor is now deceased, so we won't no repercussions on that. But he asked if he could just try one more thing, and she said yes. And the moment he did that, he threw me in the air and hit my back on the ceiling, and I coughed. And at that very moment, it came on the news that President Kennedy had been shot and killed.
Wow.
And so my claim to fame, so to speak, when I was at school in history, you know, when they said, when, you know, did that happen? My hand would only go up for that one thing, because I didn't like being seen. You know, it's 22nd of November, 1963. Very important. But yeah, so that was kind of like the start of my journey, you know, because that is something that it even amazes me. Oh my gosh, how weird is that? You know, I used to think, oh, I've got brown hair. It's like you're looking for these things that don't really exist, but it's, you know, it's just something that you do. Yeah. And then as I got older, you know, me and my sister used to share a bedroom, and we used to play games a lot, you know, like when we went to bed and it was dark, we used to imagine that we'd got you know, these hangers that you get for hanging your socks on to dry them, that you put on your washing line. We used to pretend we'd got those hanging in the ethers, and they'd used to have chocolates and sweets hanging from them. So we'd go, tonight I'm going to eat a Mars ball. You know, my mum used to shout upstairs, go to sleep. So we used to go quiet for a bit and then we'd start again. But I used to see faces. And I saw him in the curtains. I saw him if I closed my eyes. You know, it's like nothing were ever completely dark. It was like these dots. And if I focused on one, it would come in close and I would see somebody's face. And I thought that everybody saw that because I never talked about it. I just thought it were normal. And obviously because of, you know, my mum never talked a lot about her gifts as we were growing up. It was as I got older, and because I had a really big interest in spiritual things, you know, card reading. So I used to love going to these places and having readings and things like that. And I was always told, you know, that you have this gift, you're going to be using this gift. And I just was like, you know, whatever, you know, but yeah, and it just kind of developed.
Yeah. You know? So when did you start to use actually really actively make some use of it and go, I'm going to start to offer it to other people? How did that transpire?
It kind of like happened organically. I remember because of my hairdressing job, I didn't used to talk a lot about it to any of my customers. And then all of a sudden, I went to a hotel in Sheffield near where I live, and I had some readings, and I just happened to be telling a lady, you know, about my experience, and my ex-husband had gone along. He'd just gone to take me in the car, but I was disappointed because my recording, there was that much interference. I couldn't hear anything. And, you know, I was like, I need the recording because I can't remember everything that they tell me. And he was sat at the other side of the room having this recording with somebody else that was completely clear. And there's this person that weren't going for him, it was for me. And it's like, so I was discussing it with a lady who'd come to have her hair done, and we just ended up talking, and she told me about, she was a healer and that her auntie was a healer, and she used to go in hospitals, you know, helping out with her healing gifts. And we got talking about my mum and some of the things that had happened to my mum, and it turned out that this is how synchronicities happen, you know, that as children, they'd actually attended the same dancing school, but not known one another. And it kind of snowballed from there. So we used to meet once a month at my home, and there would be my mum, this lady who then become very big friends with my mum, and her daughter and myself. And we used to sit, and my mum would do some, at the time, she used to do transfiguration, where, you know, the spirit come directly into your body. And so it was like, in some respects it was scary, but not in a bad way, but because my mum's quite short, you know, so if you get a 6'2" well-built man trying to fit himself into your body, it's like this stretching going off and everything. But eventually her guides stopped that from happening and found a more easier way for her to do it. So it just happens organically now. It's really natural. But for a few years, we used to do that every month. We used to sit, and then energies would come through, and then we used to have a laugh and a joke with them, you know, because they like that. They like you to have fun. That was probably a trigger for me moving forward. And then we learnt about a lady that was running some classes, and we ended up going there for, it must be about 8-9 years. So we're way back in about 2011, 2012, when that started to happen. But I was already using some of my gifts, but then we decided to do some spiritual development classes, and, you know, it kind of progressed from there. You know, there's some things that you're stronger in than others, you know, with your senses. And one of mine really strong ones was my sense of smell. Although I used to see a lot of things moving in my peripheral vision, and then I turn, you know, it's like it's not there. And then we used to sit and do sort of meditations, and I would go into meditation, and then I'd meet some of my guides, and things like that. And as I say, it was just a natural thing. I've just been taught by my guides, and then I've put myself on different courses, and thought, well, I'll learn about that more, and I'll learn about that. The card readings came organically. I did do some training, which I didn't complete it, but it was, I've got this thing that says, you take what you need, and if I was meant to complete, then there wouldn't have been obstacles happening that stopped me from being able to do that.
Right.
So and then it just developed, everything just started to develop. And then I started doing a lot of channeling. I've done channeling whereby I speak, but I don't do that quite so much. That was difficult at first because of it's getting your right side of your brain and your left to work together, but you've got this ego bit that keeps going, how do I know I'm not saying that? And, it's like getting over all that, which I've done. And, but a lot of it comes through writing. So I can write pages and pages when I've sat and meditated, and I just pick my pen up and it just starts coming, and then someone signs it and I can't remember, what I've written. So I read it back and it's like, well, I don't even use those words, and it's like, right, okay, I get what's happening now. So it's a development. And then a few years ago, a friend of mine's husband had terminal cancer, and she asked me if I would go and do some reflexology for him, but hand reflexology, because he doesn't like having his feet touched. So I took my big bed up and I did the hand reflexology, and then he started saying, I've seen these colours, and I was like, this is interesting, and then she rang me again and she asked if he then said, would I do his feet? So I used to help him because he had a lot of problems on the medication that he was on, that was stopping him from being able to go to the toilet. So I used to help him with that. And then me and my mum would go up and we'd get them both sat and we'd do some healing on both of them, trying to line their energies back up and everything. And then I remember sitting one particular day and he was talking to me and he was telling me about things he started to see. And as I was looking at him, this energy just shot across and disappeared behind him. And I can only describe it, if you've ever seen Terminator, is it Terminator? Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he's in the forest and he's trying to see this energy to kill it, and you can't see anything, and then all of a sudden you see this vibration through the trees, and it looks like it's going like this. That was exactly what happened. And it was like, oh my gosh. So I realised that then things were starting to change again, so it's this constant evolution that's going off. I see a lot of things in my mind's eye, and I can draw things, like a few years ago, I went to a spiritual development church kind of thing because my mum wanted to go. And I was sat in the circle and I was thinking to myself, I don't know if this is really for me. This is where I want to go. But I went for my mum, and my daughter went as well. And coming home, I dropped my mum off and pulled up on my drive, and I was talking to my daughter in the car, and I became aware of this feeling that there was someone in the car with me. And this is why in the very early days, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't go in out. I can't take this person in. I need to send them to the light. So I'm sat there and I'm saying to my daughter, like somebody in the car, and this picture started to form in my mind. And I'm thinking, what's happening? So I just kind of went, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but you can't come in my house. So please go towards the light with love, and it kind of like disappeared. I sat there for a bit. I felt like it had gone. So I went in the house, picked my art pad up, and I drew this person. And the next day I rang my mum and I said, this is what's happened and that. She spoke to the other friend that had gone with us, and she said she'd seen the same man sat on the piano at the front of the room.
Wow.
And obviously, because I was kind of in that place, I'm not sure whether this is what I don't particularly like sitting in circles. I like it not to be so regimented as that. And I don't like it. So when they go around, say who you are, where you're from, doesn't bother me so much now, but then it did, So, and I used to have a lot of issues being able to say I'm a medium or I'm a psychic. So I would say, my name is Karen, I'm a hairdresser, I do soaps, I do this, I do this, I do this, and skirt around everything. And the lady that ran it, she would go, and I go, what? So I didn't want to say it. And then after a few weeks, I actually said it, and everybody clapped. She's like, yes, finally, she's recognised herself. She's accepting it. And it's like, gosh. But yeah, the man that I saw, it was actually a miner, which I didn't know. But I described him, and he had it was in, so I don't know what era it was, but it was in the time where they used to wear suits, like tweed suits. And he had a flat cap on, and he'd got a waistcoat on even, and this, I can still see him now, when I'm talking about him. And he had these trousers on and these big shiny black boots, but he'd got rope tied round his trousers just below his knees. And I didn't understand what that meant, but I was told after that that's what they used to do to stop the rats running up the legs. When they were down the pit.
Yeah. Wow.
I didn't know that. And it's like, oh my gosh. But my mum said to me, what you should have done is you should have asked for a name first, asked why they've come before you sent them to the light. But I think I was a bit scared. So it's like, no, I've got, no, you can't go in my house. You can't go in my house. I'll always remember it.
It's just fascinating to hear you talk about your experiences, because things that you've mentioned about just seeing like a shift or a vibration behind somebody, then but you don't really go along with it, because you're just like, well, is that me? And even like a few weeks ago, I was on a course. We were doing readings on each other, and this was all happening over Zoom. So we never actually ever met anybody in person. Everyone was from all over the world, like America, someone from Australia, someone from Africa, a lot in Europe. And we'd watch these classes, and it was, if anyone wants to do it, it's William Whitecloud. And it's about you just really tapping into that intuitive part of yourself and opening up and allowing things to come through. And he was saying, like, you just make it up. And you're like, what? You just make it? You're like, that doesn't make sense to make it up, but you make it up. A couple of months ago, I had a channeler, Stephanie Banks, on, and she was saying the same thing. It's like, you do make it up, because obviously when you're like, your ego mind comes in, is going, well, that doesn't make sense, and who's this? But one of the things that, a few of the things that really stuck out for me is when we did this, we go into Zoom calls, and then we kind of go into smaller breakout Zoom calls and sit with somebody. And we'd gone through processes already, so we knew how to get our mind into a certain state. And you just kind of focus on one person and do like a 10-15 minute reading on them, and just say what came into your mind, and just say it, and even when stuff would come in and you'd be like, but I go, and before I stop myself, I'd allow myself to say what was coming through and what I was seeing. And I'd just go along with it and just keep talking and just allow whatever these symbols were to kind of change and morph into something. And at the end of it, then you're like, okay, I'm done now as well. And you're nervous because I trust my own intuition to do my own stuff, to like the ideas for my business, for my work, or anything like that. I trust that, but never am I going to go around tapping people on the shoulder going, I'm going to do a reading for you. That's like way out of my comfort zone. But one of the women, she was like, everything that you'd said, it like makes sense. Because I was just seeing her doing something in the past, and she was sitting and she was really kind of looking back at a situation that had gone on, and I really described it not knowing that this thing was making sense, and she literally explained what had happened. So it really opened me up to trust even more in what I'm seeing, that it is actually coming from a place of guidance and to take my head, like you say, take your ego out the way before your ego's going, oh, is that me making it up? Is it making sense? Yeah. And it really kind of really catapulted me into a deeper understanding and a deeper trust of that. Not that I've never not, but this just kind of put the cherry on the cake for me. It really did. Even over time, I've had instances where I've met somebody and I'm just like, I don't know. On the first instance, they probably don't even open their mouth. And I'm like, I just, and the longer I'm around them and and the fact that everyone's into them and you're just like, this person's a bullshitter. You can see everything. You don't do anything around it. And on numerous occasions, I've been proved right that what I felt in the first instance was right. But of course, you don't want to be seen as rude. You don't want to be seen as judgmental. But sometimes, like, people ain't good uns, are they really? On the first, you know from the beginning. So are you hearing from people that they're tapping more into these gifts and allowing them to guide them more as well? Like, what shifts are you seeing? Because we're going through some really important times in humanity. You know that, right?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, because I actually had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. I went on a psychic rotation evening, and that's the first one that I've ever done. It's like I'm being pushed in different directions that I'd never have dreamt that I would have been going down. I've ended up going on some MBS events. I've got another 4 or 5 this year that I've got to do, and actually standing up and speaking and talking about what I do and about energy and vibration. I can see where it's going. I've really enjoyed it. And then out of the blue, I was asked to go on this psychic rotation. I'm thinking, what is it? Well, I have a friend who's a medium and he does quite a lot of them, but they call them psychic switches. And I was like, oh my gosh. So you go, there's 10 tables with so many people around, and a bell rings and you go to this table and then you give messages out. Bell rings again, you move on and you sort of work your way around. And I'm thinking, do I feel comfortable enough to do a mediumship like the other people that were going? And I don't want to stand on a podium or a stage giving messages out. To me, it's more intimate. Does that make sense? I just feel more connected that way. So I was asked to do my cards, and the ego part of you is going, what if I don't get messages and da da da. Now, I've been reading cards for a long time, but obviously not out in public. It was like this imposter syndrome coming in. And so I was really nervous when I went, but they were so lovely with me, and they kept coming saying, do you need any water? Are you okay? And I really, really enjoyed myself. And in some respects, I felt like a wild card, because I was the only one that was doing it that way. Everybody else was doing it differently. But then I got some really good feedback, and I've been asked to do some more, and card readings, like at people's homes in a group and that, which I've agreed to do. What I've noticed, and it's really weird because this makes me question everything, is I can see when somebody else's light's going on. I can see when they're struggling. And I think that's why they guided towards me, because I think, oh my gosh, who would have thought I would have, ended up on an MBS event 12 months ago. It was never in my head. But then I meet someone who then says, you should be doing this. In actual fact, when I went on the first one, it wasn't even for this. It was my crafting things that I make. But little did I realise that was the door that my guys were opening for me to step in. And then I remember sitting there thinking, I do all these things that other people are doing and nobody knows that. There was a young fella, Richard Dams. I hope you don't mind me saying his name because I think he's absolutely amazing. And he turned up at one of these events, very sort of shy like me, very quiet, doing his readings, didn't know anybody, and we just happened to get talking. He was on the next one. We ended up sort of 2 tables away from one another, and it were quiet, so we'd been chatting and about all sorts of different things. He actually said to me, you made me feel so comfortable because you spoke about how you felt, and it put me at ease. And we've ended up creating this friendship. And he's ended up putting my name forward to all these other places. And it's like, no, you need to come. So I ended up doing them and doing my cards. I do them slightly different. And this is why I say I'm a wild card, because I don't think I use them in the same way as, a medium would. And I think it's what you're saying. It's exactly what you're saying. It's that, just say what you feel, say what's coming in. And I actually started reading charms as well. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've got this bag of charms. And like, I understand what that's saying. But the collective thing that's going off, I've seen so many, without getting politically into it, because I don't like to go down that road, although I have opinions about it. But what I want to do is I want to focus on the positives and not get drawn into the negative side of things, that the fear starts kicking in. And I have experienced that. And that's what I see in so many people. And then all of a sudden, it's like this light bulb is going on. And even, some of my friends who are into this, they do spiritual things as well. But yet, one particular friend is like saying things to me now, and I'm saying, this is what I was saying 3 years ago. Not to be egotistical or anything like that. It's just that I'm recognizing that, people are sort of moving forward. And I have no doubt whatsoever. And I can't tell you how I know. I just do. And I feel it deep within me. I have no doubt whatsoever that where we're heading is going to be amazing. Not going to be without its challenges, because that's life. We need polarity. We need to do, have this balance, find this balance. But it's going to be so much better. And I think the difficulty as a light worker is when you're so passionate about it, you're feeling everybody's hurt and frustration. And so you've got to keep clearing yourself. And you've got to have like-minded people around you, because it's so lonely. When you're there on your own and you're thinking you're not vibrating on the same wavelength as people that are around you. And that's not to say that you don't love those people. And it's just that you're not on that level anymore. And it's like, well, where do I fit? I find myself going through these processes where I feel like I know where I'm heading. And then all of a sudden, I feel like I'm what I call in limbo. It's like I'm just floating in nothingness, but you can't see that's happening. It's just how I feel. And it's at that point where I think something's happening and I don't always get it. So the ego kicks in and you think, oh, I feel so detached and not detached from, what I get, but from life itself.
I want to respond to that. And over the course of especially the last 3 years, are we at now? Yeah, especially with the kind of the triggering of the pandemic and what all that represents and however people want to look at it. For me, when that happened, that really made me see that this is it. Because in all my different journeys of spiritual practices and religion and different modalities, there's always been a speaking of either a rapture, change of the ages, Kali Yuga, the shift into the Aquarian age, ascension. So many different people are speaking about something, even if I think about Dolores Cannon, and she, they always put that kind of the two globes kind of separating, and a shift from third dimension to fifth dimension. And there's all of this thing. And I was always aware that something like that was going to happen. And, initially we thought it was, I remember me and a friend sitting around her dining room table, it sounds funny now, on December the 21st in 2012, because we thought that's when it was going to happen. So we thought, well, at least we'll be together, you know what I mean? And it's like, here we are, like 10, 11 years later.
That's what they prophesized in the Mayan calendar. That's what that was perceived of it. But that wasn't actually true. They just couldn't see any further than that.
Yeah.
And but from a human perspective, we thought, oh my gosh, we're all going to be obliterated in 2012 and that'll be the end of everybody. But it wasn't. It was the shit.
It was the shit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was funny. And it's funny because when we talk about it, because we're friends to this day and we talk about all sorts of stuff. But like, I'm like, yeah, I remember when I came round your house because we thought it was the end of the world. Yeah. It's like, well, because we were the only people that we knew that we could talk to about those things as well. And we're not necessarily spiritual, you know, we've got, like, in the scheme of things, relatively regular existences. You know, we don't do that, but we have a deep understanding of spirituality and all of that kind of stuff, and we talk on that level. And, you know, our beliefs spiritually and are kind of different but very similar. You know, there's never been a clash. We've always just had a similar perspective on our own individual paths, which is what I think is really great. There's been no bucking of heads there at all. And the thing is, if you saw us physically, we couldn't look more different, but we're very close friends, you know. But it was about that, you know, looking back on it, hindsight. I mean, we thought the same thing when the clock was going to go into 2000. We thought that we were going to have like digital meltdown, you know. So it's like all of these things always coming up. But definitely when I felt the like March 2020, when that really started to shift and there was this real difference of the way that people were perceiving the world. Some were really rooted and being drawn into the fear bubble of, you know, like watching the media and what the media were telling. And then you were saying about, you know, politicians and politics worldwide, which you don't have to go into, but like your brain will tell you. There was like so much that was going on there, and then so many events, and yet there was people that were kind of, you know, in the same, you know, we were all still physically in the same realm, but we were seeing completely different things. And for me, I was like, this is it. This is the beginning. This is like actually it really happening, because then more and more you were seeing people were speaking up about what they were seeing in the world and how their world was shifting, their worldview was shifting. They were having, you know, like giving it a little bit of a squint and a side eye, going, hang on a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And really seeing things for what they were and having to really change their worldview. But like you said, also what it was happening is it was splitting people up within their peer group, within their family, you know, and it kind of played out in a way that, oh, you think it's about the vaccine, you think it's about this politician. It was more than that. It was more than just about that. That was kind of the outward expression of it, but it did mean that it pulled a lot of people out of automatic living to then go back into really question themselves. And because like the mind wants to know where it's going, and it was pulling us away from this real density of the world and what we all believed into this place that was, like you say, a nothingness, a limbo, which if you don't know where you're going feels so scary. We're used to just having it all laid out, and then suddenly you're like, well, that doesn't really ring true anymore. That doesn't make any sense.
And that's part of the programming, isn't it? You know, when you're allowing someone else to make those decisions for you, because that's all you've ever known, you know. And this, we're talking about, you know, ancestral things. It's going way, 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 way back, thousands and thousands of years, that we've lived in that belief that it has to be like this and you have to conform to this, otherwise you won't fit in.
Right.
You know, and the fear mongering of that is creating these generations of people that are scared to stand up and actually be themselves. So they conform to what is supposedly the norm until that awakening process is started, which I think is absolutely amazing. I think the thing as well is, for people like myself, you know, and mediums in the past, you know, when we go through history, that you wouldn't have spoke about it. You know, I remember, and this is, we're talking 20th century, years and years ago, when I was so shy with myself that I would never have told somebody that I could, you know, see things or smell things or hear things or had these sensations, because I would have thought that people would think that I was unstable, you know, there was something wrong with me. And it's so liberating, the fact that the shift has happened so much and is happening, that people are allowed to then express themselves. I don't have an issue now with saying, you know, that I'm psychic or, you know, that I use my gifts, or who I am as a person. You know, but it took a long time to get there.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable with who I am. And I know that I'm going to get people that will still, you know, probably question me and go, you know, poo me a little bit or whatever. But I can say that I stand in my own power. You know, this is who I am. And yes, this Karen sometimes feels, you know, that she may not be as good as somebody else. This Karen sometimes feels that she's amazing. This Karen can look in a mirror and say, do you know what? I love you. I don't have an issue with that. Years ago, I could never have said that about myself because the programming was, don't blow your own trumpet. You know, otherwise you look arrogant or you look cocky. But, you know, I'm not arrogant and I'm not cocky. I am me. And as me, Karen, who sits here, who's actually not even Karen, I'm more than that. You know, that's just my label. You know, I'm not a hairdresser. I'm not a hypnotherapist. I'm not, you know, all of these things that I've trained in. They're just tools. But who I am as me is far, far more than that. And this is when I get emotional, you know, because I want everybody else to see that in themselves. I want everybody else to feel what I feel. And sometimes it's difficult because I put so much passion into what I do that I do get emotional. I do when I stand up and do my talks. I am so nervous about doing it. And the head part of me goes, what if you forget? What if you can't remember all of this stuff that you've got? Oh my gosh. And I get into a little bit of panic. But as soon as I stand up, you know, I can think I'm going to talk about one thing and it's like something completely different comes out of my mouth.
I know,
and then I get emotional about it and I'll say, I'm sorry, because I can feel the tears. You know, I can feel it welling up from my heart and it's in my throat. And it's like, you can't just start crying in the middle of, you know, standing in front of 10 people or 20 people and go, I'm sorry. It's just, you know, I get really emotional. That
to respond to you expressing your emotions, I think nowadays people need to see, like, you know, we were talking about social media before we started recording, like people need to see just the realness of everything. And the reality of what it is to be a human trying to work stuff out right now. And also the fact that you've found something and you've tapped into this kind of reservoir and this experience of yourself that's so emotional and like fills you up so much, and you can see your own journey knowing that years ago you were nowhere near this space and you're enjoying it being in that space so much, and you just want to tell and share as many people because you can look back at yourself and go, you know, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that I would be here now today talking about all these things. I think it's necessary for us to start to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, allow ourselves to be emotional, allow ourselves to be loud and cocky. You know, if it comes, it's just the confidence and it's the passion, because so many people, the greater majority of people are living in fear and hatred of themselves and a lack of passion for their own lives. And I think that is probably the saddest thing to be living. You know, yeah, we're going through some challenging times, but like you, I believe that whatever we get, if we get through this, you know, we're going to celebrate in ways that we can't even imagine. All we know is it's more. We can't even like put our finger on it. But this is what people need to see. This is where people will like feel, because if you're standing there and you're just being really emotional, you'd have to have a heart of stone to not really feel moved yourself. You know, even if you don't understand, you'd be like, well, why is she crying? And you can hear someone just really speaking from the heart. It will just, you'll remember that. Even if you don't get it at that moment in time, you'll probably go back and go, you know, I went and saw this woman, she's crying, couldn't work it out. But eventually there'll be a time where you'll be like, oh, okay, what is, you know, they'll be more curious about you being a woman who's talking about, I've been through all of this and I'm feeling so passionate because I never used to say boo to a goose. You know, you'll be able to connect to people who are in the space where you were. I'm sure that you get people coming up to you going, they'll remember you more than the person that's like full of confidence and because few people can relate to that. They need to hear real stories and real journeys so that they can plot themselves and see themselves in that. And I think that's what any one of us who are out there speaking in this way need to remember, to just kind of reach back and be real and be vulnerable and share from the heart, so that people who listen in can hear themselves in us and see that it's possible for them, because otherwise it looks so far off and they'll be like, oh, it's all right for them. But everyone started somewhere, so.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, if you don't talk to people, you don't know their story. You only get a perception of somebody from looking at them, and you think, either they're approachable or they're not approachable. But in actual fact, the unapproachable ones, or you perceive them, are the ones that's got the most to say.
Right.
If you sort of come forward and give them the opportunity, to speak. We've all got this innate wisdom, all of us. It's just some tap into it at different periods in their lives, and it don't matter whether you've been, if we're talking about mediums, it doesn't matter whether you've been a medium, for 40, 50, 60 years or whatever, or you've been doing it for 5 years. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are at a point in your life where you're being called to action, to give whatever is necessary at that time. So I don't want to look at people and think, oh my gosh, they know more than me or whatever. And I think if those people are coming across like that, then that's when they're pretty much more in their ego. Well, I've had this amount of experience in my life, so I know more than you. I'm sorry, but no, I don't agree, because I think that there are people coming to this planet now. Well, think about it this way. As a soul, you are neither young nor old. You just exist. So if that's the case, then you are innate wisdom, and everything that you experience through your life is just adding to it. So you can get a 2-year-old. How many times do we say now, 2-year-olds, oh my gosh, they're talking like an old man or an old woman. And you're seeing it from a human perspective. But in actual fact, no, they are already old. They are timeless. They're endless. They have this information, and the bits that they are learning, or, when we're learning to walk and talk and things like that, by, observing and trying to mimic, what they're seeing around them. That's partly where a lot of the problems lie when talking about hypnotherapy. What I see with my hypnotherapy clients are the programs that are created in younger life, because it's the observations around you, and but then remembering that we're also energy and we're vibrating, and that energy within us is like it's transcending so far, it's moving out so far, and you're mingling with other energies and you're picking up vibrations. I mean, can anybody not see how amazing that is? That we can do all this stuff and we don't even realize we're doing it.
Like you say, it's been kept so secret, and then in order to put the fear of people to not look at it, then you turn it into something that people mock, and you call people whack jobs and all of that kind of stuff. So then when you have people who are discovering these gifts around themselves, they feel a bit afraid to speak out, because no one wants to put themselves on the chopping board, because you didn't speak to any of you just assumed everyone could do it. It was there innate in you all the time, which is just proof positive that we've probably all got these skills, but it's like you say, the programming that will dampen it down and put that fear and doubt, and we never really speak out and use it. And I don't know how you feel or what visions you have about the future, but one of the things that I really want to instill in people, in terms of inspire them to really just get into that state of understanding how much you can do, and all these little ideas and thoughts that get into your head are trying to guide you to the best version of you. Absolutely always is. And it's always, from my experience, when I've just followed those ideas, whether they're like ideas I get when I'm walking or washing the dishes, or something wakes me up in the middle of the night and I'm writing, if I just follow through on that, the amazing things that will happen, the people that will come out of nowhere, the opportunities that will present themselves, but it's just go with it. You're never given like ideas just out of the blue to like toy with your head. It's an idea from a part of you that's going like, just take a chance, follow it, see what happens, you know?
Yeah, I just think it's all amazing. And whatever it is I'm here to do, just let me get on with it. I can't be anything other than my authentic self, because I can't live any other way. If that means sometimes I get crap, thrown at me, then that's part of my journey. I do question things a lot, and even when bad things are happening to me, and I've had a lot over my lifetime, I don't see them now as failures. I just see it as, I wouldn't be the person that I am now if I hadn't experienced all of those things, whether it be that moment of my birth, whether it be, I've had 2 marriages, long-term marriages, and divorce for, reasons that's happened in completely different reasons. But, I never went into those marriages. I was committed to them. I didn't go into those marriages expecting that they were going to fail with the things that were happening outside. And, that's the way that they went. But had I still been in those marriages now, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be the person that I am. So how I see it is that was part of my journey to become this version of myself. And I'm sure that there's still many, many more experiences that are going to make me another version. I put a post on my page this morning on Facebook saying who you are, who you were yesterday, and the day before and the day before is not who you are now. Because every minute of every day, you are evolving, you are changing, you're growing, because you're experiencing. And who'd have thought today I would have been doing this podcast? If you'd have asked me 12 months ago, I'd never have dreamt that I'd be doing these things. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel excited. I feel passionate. I'm enjoying it and I'm flowing with it. But there are things that conspired around this process that brought me to this point. So all I see is, sometimes I get mad, feeling like I'm a bit stagnant, and I'll say, so you're supposed to be helping me, you're not doing anything. And then I question it, I'm like, yeah, but they're not outside of me, they're inside of me. So it's not, so who am I talking to? I'm talking to myself, my higher self, so I always, I'm very interested in the planets, the stars. There's not an evening goes by where I don't stand outside at some point looking up at the stars and feeling like that's my home. I don't know what is that connection, but that's how I feel. So sometimes when I feel disconnected here, it's like I want to go home, but then I realize, yes, but I'm here for a reason. I chose it, and if I should die tomorrow, then I've fulfilled what I came here for. I hope I've got a lot longer to go. I feel like I have.
Oh, Karen, that was amazing. Before we sign off, can you just share a little bit more of anything that you're doing, and just let people know where they can meet you and reach out to you and take advantage of the gifts that you're offering?
Yes, well, I currently do my hypnotherapy, but I do it slightly different than just hypnotherapy, because I use all my psychic gifts as well. I have a program that I created over a year ago called the Awesome New You program. It's a 6-week program where I like to work with women more than anything, but it's not just women. That's my forte, working with women, helping women to break out of that old version of the self. When you're getting in sort of, whether it's women who's had, the children have grown up and they feel stagnant, they don't know where they're going in their life, so I created this program to be able to help them to find their way So I'm not really good at explaining it. I'm just good at delivering it.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. I hear what you're saying. So how do people sign up for that?
Well, I have a Facebook page. It's called Beautiful Minds. Also on my private page, Karen Goodwin, you can contact me through either in one of them. I've got a website, www.beautifulminds.uk. I am on in yell.com. I'm on Google. My details, my phone number and everything's on the website. It does mention a little bit about my card readings and things like that as well, which is what I'd like to do more of. I'm also I wrote it down on the 13th and 14th of May, I'm actually in Cresswell Event Centre doing a mind, body and spirit. So I'm going to be talking there again. I've pretty much got one in various places each month leading up to October. And I'm doing card readings on there as well. So you can come and talk to me, come and listen, to what I've got to speak about. I don't know what I'm talking about because what I plan becomes something different. And I just go with the flow and think, right, if that's what you want me to talk about, then that's what I do.
Well, that was fantastic. We'll keep in contact with you as well and just find out what we're doing. I think it's a real opportunity for us to really band together as well. I think as things kind of go one way, we just really need to really unite and just hold tight and really hold the energy of possibility for people and really infuse into them that this is just growing pains as we shift into something else.
Yeah, I keep talking about that with the aches and pains in the body. It's not that I'm a doctor, although I do know that I was a apothecary in a previous life, and I think, gosh, is this why everything I do I have to do holistically? You don't realise, about that interconnection. And it's like, well, where is all this information coming from?
Yeah.
Is it in my cells? Who knows?
Probably.
But yeah, definitely. Yeah. Brilliant.
Amazing.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Karen, for being my guest this week. And thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website. That's carolmaywhittick.com. carolmaywhittick.com. You can also still join the Embody Higher Energetic Resonance journey. It's a free week-long journey, 3 steps closer to being the woman of your dreams. So if you have a dream, if you have an aspiration and a challenge with the impetus to actually make the steps towards that, take the free journey with me and embody that higher energetic resonance that's leading you towards that greater version of yourself. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Kazmic, Kazmick, and on Facebook, Carol May Whittick. Also, do check out the sister podcast to Her Conversations, Her Inspirations, Higher Energetic Resonance Inspirations. Each week, I take a spiritual and psychological look at a different subject and delve deeper and share some of my learnings and inspiration and coaching. So until next week, look after yourself,